Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of... actually no, this is War Thunder with the mighty Jingles. I apologise in advance for the picture quality, for the Russian chat in the background. I'm not responsible for any of this. This is video capture straight from the live stream that Gaijin put on at the Igromir Games Festival in Russia, where they demonstrated ground combat in War Thunder. That's what you're looking at. Doubtless most of you have already seen the majority of this footage before, but I figured I had to comment on it. This is what a lot of us have been waiting for. You're looking at War Thunder ground combat. Arcade mode, you'll notice that there is no sniper view, there's no gun sight view, everything is third person with zoom. And here you can see a Mark III Panzer getting stuck into enemy tanks. And what he's about to do here is call in off-map artillery support. This looks like it might be an unlock that you can get for your tanks. And he's just been taken out. So, from the top, selected highlights. First thing that you're going to see here is in this arcade battle selection screen at the start, you can see that you can select a lineup of tanks and aircraft. That's not something I expected to see, I have to admit. It's probably going to come as a surprise to most of us. And here is War Thunder's KV-1 heavy tank. You can see there's a Stug over there. He's zooming in for a closer look. And I have to admit, the first thing I thought when I saw this on the live stream was it's Skyrim with tanks. Because you very rarely see. So that was the thing about War Thunder when it was just aircraft. They didn't have to lavish that much detail on the ground. I mean, it was pretty, but it didn't have this level of detail in it. It didn't need this level of detail in it, since for the most part you were only seeing the ground from 1,000 metres up. And there's a lot more ground detail here than I expected. Well, I don't really know what I expected. And I think a lot of us were fooled by what we could see of the ground from the air. And it was never going to be that basic. They were always going to have to, go that extra mile for the ground combat. Speaking of going that extra mile, wait until you see the pyrotechnics. That was one of the things that I was kind of a little disappointed by in the air combat in War Thunder. Not so much the damage effects when you hit an enemy aircraft, but when you drop a bomb and it hits the ground, it looks fine from 5,000 metres up. When you're a little bit closer, the pyrotechnics were severely lacking. Well, get a load of this. When you see a tank brewing up from an internal fire in this, you know that tank's on fire. You don't just see a little orange flicker over the engine compartment the way you do in World of Tanks, for example. Watch this. It's two KV-1s facing off against each other, although that other KV-1 is probably getting shot at by somebody else. Wait until you see the flames escaping from the top hatch under pressure inside. There he is. He's oh man, watch that. That is good. But let's not get too carried away by, it's just graphics at the moment. Although, that was awesome. That has got to be an ammo rack hit. I mean, there was no mistaking. That was a one-shot, to end all one-shots. That's the kind of thing you would expect to see happen when an ISU 152 with a BL-10 gun slams a shot into a Panzer III, for example. That's the kind of explosion you would expect to see. There should be nothing left but a pair of smoking tracks. Well, you're getting that here. The level of detail in the pyrotechnics, at least, are just wow. But, let's not get too carried away. It is, at the end of the day, just eye candy. But watch the way the view snaps to the target when he zooms in while moving. Look at that. It all just seems so intuitive. And that's one of the things that I loved so much about War Thunder when I started playing aircraft in it, the way that a complete flight sim noob like me, using a mouse and a keyboard, still felt like I was controlling an aircraft in their arcade battles before I even started playing Historical. As a complete noob to the game and to the genre, I felt like I was flying an aircraft. Which shouldn't come as a surprise given the pedigree that Gaijin have with flight sims. But I was kind of worried about whether or not they could pull it off successfully. Oh, look at that. Yep, he's out of there. But I was kind of worried whether or not they could pull it off successfully with the tanks. And from first impressions, it looks like it handles with exactly the same level of polish that their aircraft do. So that's a major plus point in my book. The one thing I would say, as far as the handling seems, and again, this is just, I mean, I haven't played this. This is just screen capture from the live stream. The vehicles seem a little lighter than I would expect them to. I mean, you saw the KV-1 hurtling around the map there. At speeds significantly in excess of what I would expect a KV-1 to be able to achieve. Later on, you're going to see a Stug flip itself over. The fact that you can do that is good, but it seems a little too easy to do it. I get the distinct impression from watching this stream that we're looking at a lot of placeholder. I suppose flight models is completely the wrong term, but you know what I mean. The performance and handling characteristics almost certainly haven't been locked in yet. So take what you're looking at with a very large pinch of salt. Oh, here we go. Calling in off-screen artillery support. Not all of the tanks seem to be able to do this, which suggests that it's an upgrade, it's an unlock. That whoever's playing this only has on certain of the tanks, or perhaps it's something that certain types of tanks are only allowed to do. Maybe the heavy tanks can't do it. Don't know. We're just guessing at this stage. I have to admit, it's at times like this where I really, really wish I could speak Russian. Because, well, I would actually have been able to understand what the commentator was talking about. Oh, check this out. He's just called in an artillery barrage on the road ahead of him. And there it is. Wow. And of course, a couple of things from that. No health bar and no damage indicator. So we don't actually know how much damage or what damage, or even if that tank, the T-70 he's driving, took any damage from that artillery strike. I think that's the one thing about this live stream, is that it just left more questions than answers. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great to be able to see. I mean, look at the model. The rust and the mud on that Stug. And it's fantastic to be able to actually see, this stuff in action. But it's leaving a lot of questions unanswered. Like, for example, how can you tell what parts of your tank have been damaged? The KV-1 that we saw at the beginning was taking fire from all sorts of different directions. You could see penetration indicators popping up to the left and the front of his tank, but at no point did we see the, like the paper doll that shows up indicating the damage to your aircraft that exists currently in War Thunder. And, how do you know what parts of your tank are damaged? And maybe that's just something they haven't gotten around to implementing yet. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. This is far from being ready for release. Still haven't actually seen a release date for ground combat, although it's got to be close, given that they're actually showing it to the public and letting people play it at Igramir. Now, one thing that we did see when we're driving our tanks around was you could see the gear that you were in, the RPM of the engine, and the speed you were doing. Although it didn't look like anybody was actually changing gears while driving the tanks around. But that might have just been an arcade battle thing. Perhaps in historical battles you have to actually shift gears yourself. But here we go. Flying aircraft in a combined arms battle. The Ju-87 Stuka going to fly air support for friendly tanks. Now, one of the things that people were very concerned about, and rightfully so, was how the hell are you expected to defend yourself against things like dive bombers. You know, what possible defense can you have against them? Well, based on what we're going to see, one of the problems was, well, here we go. The only targets that this Stuka can actually see are enemy aircraft that have been spotted and friendly tanks. At no point is he going to get a red player's name pop up over the head of an enemy ground vehicle. You have to actually use the old Mark 1 eyeball, look for signs of battle, and spot these tanks yourself. Now, I don't know how the cover mechanics work. I don't know how the spotting mechanics work, the camouflage mechanics. It could be that unless an enemy tank, or rather a friendly tank, it actually has eyes on. There we go. What he's doing, he's looking for the friendly tanks. And he's about to... Here we go, a bit of close air support. Bombs away. Yeah, that's a kill. But you'll note that even though friendly tanks were in direct line of sight combat with those enemy tanks, he never at any stage got a target indicator pop-up showing him enemy player, whatever your name is here. Ooh. Yeah, that one's going to leave a mark. But it serves to illustrate the value of staying in cover from above. Because if an enemy dive bomber, you know, he has to actually see your tank in order to drop a bomb on you. And it seems that the way to do that is to, well, do what you would do. Fly cover over friendly tanks and engage targets that you see them shooting at. Now, I don't know if that's going to be enough, and I am 100% sure that people are going to be complaining about aircraft while you're driving tanks the way people complain about artillery when they're driving tanks in World of Tanks. So that's going to be a careful balancing act, and they almost certainly haven't nailed it at this stage of the game yet. But, oh, there we go. That's the Stug flipping over I was talking about. Now, that seemed far too easy. And that's what happens when you flip your tank. No hope of recovery. You've written it off. It seemed like it happened a little too easily, but I dare say that's something that is still going to continue to be tweaked as the game gets developed. So jumps into a second Stug. And also talking about aircraft defense again, because that's, you know, this is the big thing that War Thunder ground combat has over its most obvious competitor, World of Tanks, the fact that you can fly aircraft and tanks in the same battle. Bear in mind, this is a capture the flag domination map. It's going to be very, very difficult to capture those flags without tanks. It's not like you can land a Ju-87 on the middle of a forest on top of a pillbox and capture the flag that way, so you have to keep your ground forces alive. Now, we have not yet seen any air defence vehicles, flak panzers for example, the Whirlwinds and the Ostwind type vehicles with their own 40mm anti-aircraft guns. Are they going to be in the game? Don't know. Haven't seen any. Doesn't mean they're not going to have any, and it would make sense. And oh, there goes another Amarak. I guess the point is it's easy to fall into the trap of trying to read too much into what we're seeing here in this live stream. This is still pretty basic gameplay. I'm 100% positive that most of the vehicles we're seeing driving around are not using their actual performance models. The Stugs and the KV-1s in particular seem far too light. And we shouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, if you look at the air vehicles in War Thunder, there are still air vehicles in War Thunder that were introduced when the game went into global beta that still don't have their proper flight models. And even the ones that do have their proper flight models are being tweaked all the time. So the fact that stuff in the ground combat at this early stage isn't handling the way you might expect it to shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone. But let's just look at what we do have. We've got tanks in War Thunder. We've got tanks and aircraft flying in the same battles on maps specifically designed for combined arms operations in War Thunder. We have no health bars. It seems to be that if you're going to knock out an enemy tank, you need to actually physically do the kind of damage to that tank which would render that tank unusable. We've almost certainly got placeholder performance characteristics on probably the majority of the vehicles. other than the aircraft, which should mostly be locked in place by now. And all of this is just the arcade battle section of the game. In fact, we don't even at this point know if it's even possible to just play tanks and not have the aircraft involved in the same battle. So there's a huge range of questions still remain to be answered. What's historical battles going to be like, for example? I don't know about you, but I'm very, very excited about finding out. So, I hope you've enjoyed that little teaser from the live stream from the Gaijin's demonstration of War Thunder ground combat and combined arms battles from the Yggdrasil Games Festival. I've been the Mighty Jingles. You've been awesome. Take care on that battlefield, and I'll catch you next time.